Today, we're diving into one of the most overlooked strengths in commercial cleaning and facility services, the power of a great first impression. Whether you're walking into a school, an office, a healthcare setting, industrial space, the way you prepare for and conduct a facility tour can set the tone for the entire relationship you're hoping to build. So today we're going to focus on three essential phases of a winning facility tour and the follow-through steps that leave a lasting impression long after you leave the building. And to do this, I'm joined by a regular guest, Jeff Carmen. He's a coach and a consultant with Elite BSC. He spent years training teams on how to do exactly what we're going to talk about today. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Great to see you today. Yeah, this topic, some might say it's a cliche, that first impression,
Right.
but
Mhm.
so important. So I'd love to dig into this and get your thoughts on what you see in the industry and what we can do to help those watching our program today. I mean, everyone understands that you only get one shot at the first
Right.
impression.
Right.
That's simple. If it's so simple, why is it such a critical topic? Why are we talking about this today?
That's a great point. I think what happens is there is so much work that leads up to getting to this opportunity to walk the facility, gather the information, and provide the proposal. We refer to that phase of the process as the engage phase. And so you've got all of this work, calls, emails, all that to get to the opportunity to do this. And I think a lot of times folks don't put in the necessary work to make that the most it can be. And so you've got this long sales cycle and I think maybe you just run out of steam. And I think in this phase is it needs to feel like a natural extension of what you've done beforehand. So if you've set yourself up as a trusted expert or a trusted advisor in the field, this phase, this facility walkthrough needs to feel just like that as well. And so that's why it's so important. But again, I think busyness and those kinds of things get in the way of folks really emphasizing how to do this well.
Well, you mentioned the work done before the visit. Let's focus on that a bit. So, of all the things you can do, whether it's phone calls, emails, sending something, preparing yourself, whatever it is, what are the most important steps to make sure that when you arrive, you're ready and it's going to be a good impression?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is where I think it's really important to spend the time and energy to do these things. The first thing is information gathering, and I'll talk information gathering in three different ways. And the first is gather information about the company. So we're talking about things like what do they manufacture, or what kind of a physician's office are they? Find out where they're headquartered. Are they an international company? Who are their clients? Find out what's going on in their industry. And so, like for instance, if I'm going to a manufacturing facility, I'm going to ask during my facility tour how the tariffs have affected them so that they understand that I have done some research on what they do as a company. The second is to gather information about the contact, so that person that you're going to be meeting with. LinkedIn is your best friend on this mainly, as you can go and find out what their role is, what they do in terms of their role, what their responsibilities are, find out what their previous experience is. It's possible that they may have a connection to another client you have. And then also, I mean, I have also found out, a little bit about them personally on Facebook. That's kind of creepy, I guess, but that's a way that I can gather information to maybe generate a conversation if that pops up. And then the last information gathering is just about the facility: how many square feet, how many floors, how many building users there are, how many visitors. So that's information gathering. The second one is as a pre-visit email where you send out, you set the agenda for the time that you're there, confirm the time, ask about any requirements, check-in requirements, PPE, those kinds of things. And then the last part and the most important part is question development. Now I use Spin Selling. It's a book by Neil Rackman. It's kind of an old book. It's a little bit dated, but it talks about four types of questions that you would ask in a situation, a B2B sale. And this has been a really good guide for me, but I would suggest developing these questions and with someone practice the questions that you're going to ask. It's a nice flow to make sure that you're gathering the information you need to present your best case.
Just because a book is old doesn't mean it's not valuable. That's for sure. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Good ideas have a long shelf life. Let's talk about the actual walkthrough. when you think about that first impression, we're not talking about that handshake when you get there. It goes beyond that. So what are some top behaviors or habits that build credibility with a potential client?
I'll give you a couple. I'll sound like my father. Arrive at least 5 to 10 minutes early because there may be some check-in procedure that you have to go through. And so it's a shame if you show up right on time and that takes 10 or 15 minutes to get in. So you've kind of gobbled up some of the time. So arrive early, dress business casual. I don't wear logoed clothing because I don't want to create any uncomfortable situations for my contact if I run into the current cleaning company. And that's just something that everybody needs to decide. So that's kind of just right off the bat. The next one is to really guide the conversation using these questions that you've created. And so again, the best way to do this is to practice, think through the questions that you're going to ask. So for instance, one of the situational questions that I might ask, so the spin selling situational is S. I might ask, hey, how often do you hear from your current vendor, your contact person with the current vendor? And so I'll just kind of walk through those questions as we're making our way around the facility. And what I'm doing is I'm asking questions so that when we get to the end, which is the very end of the process, when we have a little short get together, that's when I can connect their issues with how my company can solve their problems. So for instance, if someone says, well, I used to hear from my contact pretty regularly, but now it might go months before I hear from them. At the very end, I'll say, hey, you mentioned that you don't hear from your account manager or your contact. We have a system set up based on your size. You would see our account manager once a week. If I said that before they had expressed that they don't see that person, it's a little bit out of context. So asking those questions and then what I'll call connecting the dots is really important. The spin selling has a really good little phrase that they say, shift your mindset from persuading to understanding. So we're going in and we're not trying to shove down their throat who we are. It's I'll find out who you are and what your needs are. And then I think I can show you how I can help you with your problem.
That last part, Jeff, you just mentioned there reminds me of a phrase. Some people listen to respond. We should listen
Mhm.
to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you shared some great details. Hopefully the tour, the visit, it goes well, but not every situation is predictable. There's some things that come up. How do you recommend, what can we do in advance to be ready for unexpected challenges or surprises to where we don't have this look of horror on our face or shock, thinking about
Right.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say this. I would say good preparation is going to take away a lot of those surprises. And so when I think about surprises that might incur and that I've had happen to me is I've shown up before and the person said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just not able to meet. I've driven 2 hours to hear that. You might find somebody who you get a sense that they're just going through the motions, collecting bids, but they're really happy with their current vendor. Maybe somebody's just rude or not very talkative. And so the key is to remember the goal. And the goal is long term, we want to win this customer's business because we feel like, because we've done our prospect research, we feel like that we can serve them really better than anybody else. We have to have that kind of confidence in ourselves. And so the key is to remain professional. If you find somebody who's not very talkative, just keep it very businesslike and move on because they're probably really busy in their day. But we just have to consider that these folks have a lot of things that are going on. They might have something personally going on. They might have something that's blown up in business. So we need to be professional and again, understand where they are and try to serve them the best way we can.
Have you found at times when you're doing a tour, talking to a potential client, that they are happy with their current cleaner and they're going through the motions? Is that a common issue?
I would say it's common, maybe not, but happens
It
pretty
happens.
frequently. Yep. And one thing that I will share is if we're walking through the building and if that person happens to mention that they're just doing, they won't say it in a wrong way, but they'll say, "Hey, we have to get bids every 3 years." And I might
Mhm.
ask, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your happiness with your current vendor? If they say, we're probably an 8 or a 10, I'll say, oh, that's awesome. It's great to find a really good vendor because it's hard to find good vendors. And so in that, what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging you've probably made a good decision. You're a good decision maker. Hey, if something changes, I want them to think about me next if something ever happens with that person. But yeah, it happens. It happens probably more frequently than I would think.
Well, you just answered a question I was about to ask because you can we realize you're not going to get that job, that client, but you can turn it into a
Right.
positive and maybe down the road something can come from that. But yeah,
That's right.
being honest, being real, that makes sense.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, tour's over.
Mhm.
Jeff Carmen showed up. He shook hands. He
Mhm.
walked the building, made
Yeah.
a good impression. What are
Mhm.
you going to do afterwards to follow up?
As I'm leaving, we end up, I'm going to kind of set the schedule. So I'll say to the person, "Hey, thanks for your time today." While I'm still there, I'll send you an email. I'll send you an email by the end of the day or by the end of the week, whatever the case might be, with our proposal. Is that okay with you? And so immediately, I don't know if that I'm doing it sitting in the car, but let's say maybe that evening or the next day, send them an email that will thank them for their time, that will ask any clarifying questions, and then again reaffirm the time in which that I'll submit their proposal. Now, this brings up a question: do you submit proposals via email or do you do it in person? I always want to do it in person, but if they want me to send it to them, I will do that. But I try to say, hey, I have the proposal prepared. Could we do a quick Zoom call where I can go over the proposal with you? But that email is the most important. And then it goes without saying, just deliver on what you said. If you said you're going to have a proposal by Friday, have the proposal by Thursday afternoon would be best, but Friday morning would be fine too.
So when you do that, presenting the proposal on Zoom, do you take 2 hours to do that?
I take half their day. No, that's 15, it's 30 minutes or less, because all these folks are busy. Everybody's busy.
Because that's the first thought when you said that. I'm like, how much time will that take? Because you can send an email and they could read it on their own. But I like that. If
Right.
you tell them in advance, just a few minutes, whatever that is, then they know you're not going to be taking up a couple hours. So,
That's right. That's
or
right.
taking to
Yeah.
lunch. You never know.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yes.
All right, Jeff, we're about out of time. Any final words of advice for those watching?
Just remember the importance of this phase. Here's a good analogy, I think. I think we have to think about sales and business to business in our business as a marathon. And so you would not show up to marathoners prepare a long time. They would not plan, the night before, they wouldn't like forget their shoes or their socks. It's so important to all the work that you've done to show up and do this, prepare for this very critical time in the sales process.